Okay, thank you. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and we would like to recognize that collectively we are on the unceded territories of all the First Nations within our regional boundaries. Kristen, over to you.
Thank you. I'm going to read the virtual meeting policy, board policy. This meeting of the Electoral Area Directors Committee is being held virtually with all meeting participants attending via electronic communications in order to adhere to the provincial health officer's orders respecting physical distancing requirements as a measure to prevent the transmission of COVID-19. Directors will be involved in and participate in the meeting. Directors are to identify themselves when advising the chair that they wish to be placed on the speakers list, and this will be done by raising their hands. The chair will record the order in which the hands are raised and will allow the directors to speak in the order in which they are recorded. If directors are unable to raise their hands due to being in audio mode, they will verbally advise the chair of their intention to speak. Directors will mute their device unless they wish to speak. The chair may also choose to mute the microphones, and the directors may unmute the microphones on their own accord when required. With respect to a vote, directors are only required to state a nay vote. Directors are not required to voice a yay vote. Directors attending the meeting are required to verbally advise the chair of when they leave the meeting and return to the meeting so that this can be recorded in the minutes. For clarity, if a director does not verbally advise the chair but is observed to be absent from their video feed and their video feed remains turned on and it is unclear to staff whether they are present in the meeting, the director will be marked absent from the meeting until such time as staff observes the director to reappear in the video feed. Directors will text message the CAO if they have a technical difficulty with their computer. If directors are unable to text the CAO, the directors will email the chair. If a technical difficulty occurs and it becomes apparent that a director has become disconnected from the meeting will be recessed until the connection status of the director has been determined, at which time the meeting will be reconvened with or without the director present, provided the meeting's quorum is maintained. Directors who declare a conflict of interest in respect of an agenda item will be directed to the virtual waiting room until the committee considers the agenda item. Once the committee completes its consideration of the agenda item, the director will be readmitted to the virtual waiting room. Directors who are present within the virtual waiting room are asked to stay at their computer or otherwise remain present and connected to their computer if possible for the duration of their time in the waiting room so as not to miss their readmittance into the virtual meeting room. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Sal, seconded by Vivian. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 3.1 is request for decision. I would just like to have that moved as it is presented in the agenda. Moved by Sal, seconded by Vivian. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Excuse me. Is there anything in the consent agenda that needs to be removed?
I'll move the consent
Vivian?
agenda.
Okay.
I was just moving the consent agenda.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. I'll second it. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Business arising from the minutes. I don't believe there is any. CAO verbal update.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing this morning.
Okay, thank you. 6.2, information report, project update. Do we have somebody to talk to us on this, or? We do.
Yes.
I see Michael just arrived. Very good. Is Michael going to talk to us about It's Fire Smart Community Funding and Supports. He's muted right at the moment.
There he is.
Oh, Sarah is also here. Maybe she wants to join us as well.
Oh, wonderful.
I've just admitted Sarah Morgan as well.
Sarah in yet?
Yes, good morning, directors.
Hi,
Yes, my
Michael.
name is Mike Fusca.
You're good. Yeah, you're good to go, Michael.
Yes, thank you. Morning, Chair and directors. My name is Mike Fusca. I'm an emergency management technician with the SLRD. Pardon me, bear with me while I turn off my video on the other screen. Yeah, I'm an emergency management technician with the SLRD, and I'm here to talk to you this morning about our grant funds from the Union of BC Municipalities Fire Smart Community Funding and Supports Grant. So this spring, we were approved for $258,000, 993.60 from the Community Resiliency Investment, and this is for Fire Smart Community Funding and Supports. This project, these grant funds are broken down into 5 different projects that we're working on right now. The first one is an infrastructure upgrade for the Braylorn water pump and reservoir. Just over $9,200. We're going to replace the roof on the Braylorn water pump and reservoir, replace it from a wood to a tin roof to make it more resilient to wildfires. And we're also going to do some vegetative debris management around those structures. The second project is to develop community wildfire resiliency plans. Now, these wildfire resiliency plans, they will supersede our current wildfire protection plans. So we'll have one of them for each electoral area. And we've hired on some contractors. We've hired on Landscope to do these resiliency plans for electoral areas A and B, and Blackwell and Associates Limited to do these for areas C and D. And basically, they're quite similar to the old wildfire protection plans in a lot of ways. They'll come with mapping resources. They'll do basically a fuel assessment around our inhabited areas and our electoral areas. But they're also an expansion on those old CWPPs in that there's a lot more emphasis on community stakeholder engagement. So for example, for each of our electoral areas, we're going to have Fire Smart Resiliency Committees, and we're expected to launch those within the next month. Our first meeting is expected to be on Friday for areas A and B, and then we're just scheduling our first Fire Smart Committee meetings for areas C and D. So those will include us, of course, community members, the Wildfire Service, Flinro, First Nations, and other community groups within those areas. So we're pretty excited about these Fire Smart committees and the wildfire resiliency plans that they'll come into, or they'll feed into. So that's project 2. Project 3 for training and education. We received funding to send for 7 SLRD staff members to attend the BC Fire Smart Symposium. So this was on May 26th. Yeah, very helpful to all of us. We actually had presentations from other local governments in BC who have already completed some of the projects or types of projects that we're hoping to do in the SLRD this summer. So yeah, great learning opportunity there. That was yeah, just over $700 for that project. And then project 4 is Fire Smart Education in the SLRD. So we have $34,500 this year for Fire Smart Education in the SLRD. Originally, this was scoped to do in-person Fire Smart Education Days. And that was in the hopes that the pandemic would have subsided by the time we wanted to do this. Unfortunately, the pandemic is not. So what we've done this spring is virtual Fire Smart seminars. So I've been running these in collaboration with our Resource Recovery Coordinator, Mary Lou Blanc, as well as the Wildfire Service and Wild Safe BC. And we've been delivering these webinars over Zoom. We've done 3 so far. And then we have 2 more scheduled for Monday and the Monday after. And basically, we've targeted, our first one was for electoral areas A and B. And then we did Reed Road, Walkerville, and Owl Ridge in Area C. Just this Monday, we did Birken, Darcy, and Devine in Area C. And then next Monday, we have a Fire Smart seminar for Black Tusk Village, Pinecrest Estates, and then the following Monday for Upper Squamish Valley. And at these, we've been, one, it's been a forum for the BC Wildfire Service to talk about Fire Smart best practices and open burning. And then also it's been an opportunity for me and Mary Lou to explain our SLRD Fire Smart program. In particular, the Fire Smart activities I'll describe in the next project. But before I leave on this project, I'll just say that our hope is that in the fall, as long as the pandemic conditions allow, we will go back to hosting community Fire Smart Education Days in person, where we have a barbecue and, you know, in these select communities, we're looking at targeting a maximum of 10 communities for this year in the SLRD, where we'll have a barbecue, the Wildfire Service will be there, and yeah, we're just going to explain to folks, you know, how they can make their properties more fire smart, and I think everyone's looking forward to it because people have been just kind of, you know, cooped up in their homes due to the pandemic. So we're pretty excited about that. But again, it says pandemic conditions allow. And then the last project, Fire Smart for residential activities, and this in a lot of ways is kind of the meat of the program for our community members, is $102,000 to do Fire Smart home ignition zone assessments and vegetative debris removal. So what we've done is we've contracted a local Fire Smart representative to assess this with us, and what they'll do is coordinate with community members to travel to their homes and provide a Fire Smart home ignition zone assessment according to the, you know, the rubric provided by Fire Smart BC. And out of that assessment will come action items that they can do to you know, basically make their homes more resilient to wildfire. So it'll be everything from, you know, vegetative debris removal around their home ignition zone. So, you know, in the 1.5 meters, 10 meters, 30 meters outside their home. It'll be things like home, like material home upgrades. So, you know, replace the roof with something, you know, less flammable, and so on. So community members in the SLRD will be given the opportunity to book this home ignition zone assessment, and then they can do the work or contract someone to do the work. And then they can ask that local Fire Smart rep to return to their home and do a post-work home ignition zone assessment. And based on the difference between those 2 pre-work and post-work home ignition zone assessments, they can apply for a rebate. And the rebate we're offering this year is 50% of the costs of those Fire Smart activities, up to $500. And that's funded out of our grant as well. So pretty excited about this. We have community members who are quite excited about this, and in support of it, the final piece is the provision of vegetative debris removal options. So in areas A and B, we're using the burn pit at Goldbridge Transfer Station, and we've established a second burn pit in Marshall Lakes, and then in specific communities within areas C and D, we're looking at doing basically a end of driveway pickup with a wood chipper. So once we have you know, at least 5 homes in a community who've done these Fire Smart upgrades and require vegetative debris removal, or yeah, the vegetative cleaning, and they require removal, then we're going to coordinate a wood chipper and a truck to come around to end a driveway and pick up that vegetative debris and clear it out and take it to be disposed of in an appropriate way, whatever is appropriate for that community. So it's not for the entire SLRD this year. Again, we're focusing on in area C and D, Burke and Darcy Devine, Owl Ridge, Reed Road, and Walkerville in area C, and then Blackcrest Village and Upper Squamish Valley in area D. Our hope is that if this program goes well this year, we'll be able to expand it to other communities throughout the SLRD next year, and yeah, in areas A and B, or area A specifically, we're looking at those burn pits as the most effective way of assisting people in disposing vegetative debris there. So yeah, that's kind of it, directors. Yeah, happy to take any questions on that.
Yeah, Sal, go ahead.
I have a few questions. The community wildfire protection plans that were developed, I think it was 2018 or 29, I think 2018. They were aimed at Crown land, and this plan looks like it's aiming at owned property, private property. So we need Crown land to get fuel mitigated badly, as we do with private properties. So and you talked about, it's a combination. So where does the Crown property fuel mitigation program sit with this program?
So this program is under the CRI Community Resiliency Investment Stream 1. So this Stream 1 is focused on residential properties and within 1 kilometer of the wildland urban interface. So basically 1 kilometer of density of 6 structures or more. And that's kind of the residential component. Stream 2 is Crown land wildfire risk reduction, and that's being managed through in area A and B through Flinroe Cascade District. And basically what they do is they work with the wildfire service, and they look at the amount of money they have available, and in part fed by the information that comes to our previous CWPPs and the CWRPs, they make an assessment on the highest priority Crown land field treatments that need to be completed, and prescriptions and treatments, and they go from there. So yeah, within the short answer to your question, Director Mayer, is that within the 1 kilometer WUI is what we call it, wildland urban interface. That's really where this program that I'm talking about today focuses on, and then we advise Flinroe Cascade District on areas outside of that WUI on the broader Crown land, and they work with the wildfire service to set priorities and treat those as required. Yeah,
me and Sarah had a meeting with Flinroe Cascades Forest District, and unfortunately our area was ranked, it had a 3 rating on it, which and the funding that they had for the Crown property was not a lot, and we didn't get any, and somehow we need to get, for area A, we need to get some. So we'll work on that later. Another question I've got is I'll just pass for now.
Okay, Vivian?
Thank you, Chair Mac. Hello, Michael. That was a very good presentation. Thank you. And I really enjoyed sitting in on the seminar too. And I'd just like to say that my husband was in the background watching it, and he did a whole bunch of fire smarting around the property after that. We are sitting, yeah, we're sitting on the side of the Fraser River where it's like grassland, ponderosa pine, and it's really arid and dry, and we've had a shockingly low amount of rain, so we're feeling very vulnerable to fire already. So the presentation was good. Thank you for the seminar. I'm really pleased about Landscope being involved and they've started that work. I'm listening. I don't hear about any burn pits in Area B, but I do know, and we've certainly done this, that you can take vegetative debris up to the landfill here and it gets chipped and composted, which has been pretty successful. So far, so good. But you're offering a really good service by having people have that at the end of their drive. That is amazing. But I didn't hear any mention of any Area B neighborhoods in there. So I'm listening. Thank you.
Yes, correct, Director Burchon, that's correct. So we did some community engagement with. I had a session with Jackie Rasmussen and Jeff Playfair in Area B, and I asked them, what would be the best to serve your community here, and I threw out the idea of doing a burn pit or driveway pickup, and the consensus from the community members was, we have big properties here, we do mostly open burn on our own properties, so really, what would be best is some education on open burning, which we did cover in the virtual fire smart seminar, and B, have someone come through a property and do like a walkthrough of things that can be done, which is what we're hoping to gain a couple of ways. One, through the home ignition zone assessments, and two, in the fall through our community education days. That's specifically for Area B. That's what we're looking forward to is getting a group of folks. We're trying to find a volunteer in the community who would take people through their property, and we could all just kind of walk through together and do that. So that when I framed it to them, I said, these are grant funds, and it's a limited funding envelope, and I told them that my goal is to basically use those funds most effectively throughout the SLRD. So if end of driveway pickup is required, then absolutely we'll look at it. But if there's other things that would suit you better, I could kind of spread this around and just make the most of the money by taking the best actions for each community.
I see Sarah has her hand up. Chair Mac. Presto.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to add that for Area B, the Bryson pit out near Pavilion has been used for a number of years, and unfortunately the permission to use that area for burn has been rescinded by MOTI. And we have yet to find a suitable alternate location in our current conversations that Michael has been having with the community. So we're still hopeful, because that burn pit has operated very successfully for that area. But until we find an alternative, we're working on some of those other options that Mike mentioned.
Thank you.
Yeah, fair enough, and thank you.
Have you got your hand up, Sal, or your little yellow hand in the corner?
Yes, I do. That's what I'm going to use. Anyway,
Okay.
I jotted it down, but when I looked at it, I didn't realize the question I was asking. But here it is. With these community engagement sessions in person, June 15th, we'll be able to have 50 people outside for sessions. And I'm wondering, first of all, what the 10 communities are. Maybe you can share that with this group later in an email, because I could see one in our by our community hall that we have in Goldbridge, and then maybe another one at Marshall Lake, because they're quite a ways away. But anyway, if we did a poll here to see how many people would attend, and if it was less than 50, then we could hold it here outside. And I don't know if you need a projector for it or a screen, but that would make it a little bit more difficult. But if not, then they could be held outside. Other than that, then we'd have to wait till that was opened up even farther so we can have it inside. I just want to make those comments.
Yes, Director,
Thank you.
I'd say there's
Go ahead,
a
Mike.
lot of enthusiasm.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add before the question gets answered specifically in relation to the fire smarting activities that the June 15th date is the earliest possible date. And so we continue to monitor on a daily basis those changes and really cannot be proceeding with making plans or changes until we know that that date's an actual date. So there'll be no decisions made, and particularly no staff put in any positions that would involve making activities that run ahead of the provincial decision making. So we're enthusiastically looking forward to that, the same as everybody else, but we do have to wait for that to occur before we can make plans in that direction. Staff.
Thank you. Michael or Sarah, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, CEO Helmer, thank you. That's 100% the case, and it's also planning time as well. We recognize that to build enthusiasm for these fire smart initiatives, it really needs to present well. And if we could do a good job, if we look polished, then that'll only work. That'll only serve us this year and in the future. So once the province comes and says quite firmly what we can and we can't do, and we can make some good planning assumptions, that's what's going to set us up to really knock it out of the park, with community members and show that this thing is really well put together, and we know that when we present well on our side, then that's just going to build enthusiasm. So we don't want to rush it. We do want to do it this year. I personally, I'm anticipating later this summer or in the fall, as long as there's no major hiccups with the pandemic or vaccination schedule. I think it's too early to say when exactly we would do it. Just because we want to make sure it goes really well.
Very good. Any more, Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that the work that Mike has already done has really generated a lot of interest in the community, not just in FireSmart, but we're starting to get requests for engagement more broadly on community emergency planning. And to me, that's very encouraging.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, everybody. Oh,
Yep.
Sal, go ahead.
I'd like to move to receive the report. Excellent report.
Okay. Seconded by Vivian. Call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, you two.
Chair, I've admitted Kim Needham to the meeting for the next item.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Kim. Okay, so 6.3 is request for decision, Permanent Meadows Electoral Area C Development Variance Permit Application number 161. So I'm going to move that we move forward with option 3 of the staff report. So I'll move that. Vivian's going to second that. And now I'll call for discussion. Oh, hang on a sec. I got to get this. Okay. Yeah, Vivian, do you have anything?
I'm extremely interested in the solar, and I read this situation, and I read all of the information about that, and I understand their concerns around placement and how solar will work best. I also think it's understandable why they would want to build on higher elevation ground, and I think having a view is a consideration as well. The discussion about using the farm road and minimizing damage to agricultural land makes good sense to me. And then finally, them not wanting to cut down cottonwoods. They're one of the most highly rated and endangered ecosystems in British Columbia. I think just after Gary Oak and sageland ponderosa pine is the cottonwood or riparian. And so I support all of those sort of positive factors in their request for a variance. And so I support their request for a variance. Thank you.
Sal?
Yeah, I also support the variance that they're requesting, and I also, in one of the documents, there was an item that a geotechnical survey was done. I think as directors, we need to have all the information that we can that attributes to the reasons why the person would want a variance report. Unfortunately, it wasn't on this documentation, and we need all the information and to make a proper decision making when we come to these variance reports. You know, over my time, the short time as a SLRD director, we've had to deal with some variance reports that, you know, had some concerns, and we got more and more documentation as we progressed. And anyway, I am in approval of what the motion is. Thank you.
Okay, Leslie?
I read through the report through the request for the variance with a lot of detail, and I'm in agreement with everything that Vivian said. I feel that they are not able to access hydro, so solar is the only option for them. I recognize that where they want to build enables them to put the solar closer to their house than if they were to build closer to the road. The solar would be located further away. But also the fact that they want to use the old farm road for access, they're not creating new access to where they would be building their house. So they're not, exactly what Vivian said, they're not lessening the site of the agricultural for say, and they're not digging as deep for the house for the foundation of the house into the peat moss. So they're not impacting the soil as much if they were able to build more on a hillside. They're not excavating as much or having to bring in as much fill for it. So I'm really in support of things like that. I think that it's important to look at the whole picture and not just to stay bound by what has been the case in the past. I think that they offered a really clear argument for why they should be allowed that variance, and I'm in support of it.
Thank you. Yesterday, I drove up to the property and walked around, had a good look at it. And when you actually walk the property and see what's there, you get a really good idea of what they're planning on doing. The other thing that they're going to be doing too, obviously, to run this cow-calf operation, they're going to have to build a barn for the cattle, and also a hay building, because you got to feed them all winter, and a machinery shed and all that stuff. So where they want to build that in relation to the house as close as possible, so there's a visual, it just all makes sense. And when you go and actually walk this property, it's huge. I talked to the neighbor that lives just north of them, and I mean, he's fully in support of what they want to do. He thinks it's going to really enhance the agriculture on the property, and anyways, he's fully supportive. And he told me that the total property they have there is 387 acres. So it's a huge piece of land. The other thing that I really like about what they're doing is by not cutting a bunch of trees or You know, they don't need to do that to do their operation. There's a lot of wildlife habitat there, and it's winter range for moose in that area. And I think it's really, really important, as Vivian said, to keep as much of that intact as possible. And there's a lot of riparian there, and that just needs to be left alone. So that's why I fully support what they're trying to do. So anyways, as I say, we've moved and seconded option 3, and that's to offer unconditional support for the application and issue the DVP as presented. So is there any other discussion or questions?
Yes.
Sal?
When the SLRD and the BRVCA worked at the solar project for the Goldbridge area, one on the SLRD building, one at the transfer station, and one at the Halemore Heritage Site. The contractor that did the report for this DVP from Kamloops, I worked with him at the initial stages, and we toured a bunch of areas that we were looking at, other than just the Halemore site. We looked at the Braylorn Church, the Braylorn Hall roofs to see if we could put them on there. And of course, we looked at the Halemore Heritage Site and found the location where it is right now. And Minto Communication, that's who they use for all their solar panels at the towers with the battery backup and so on and so forth. He is excellent. If I look at that report, I believe him exactly where that his identified circle is there, is where the house is to go. They are very good at what they do.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call a question on this. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Chair, I'll admit Suzanne LaFrance for the next item.
Okay,
Thanks.
yeah, 6.4 is EAD Reserve Fund Balance 2021. Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning. So Annie prepared this EAD balance report for you guys. Do you have any questions on that?
Does anybody have any questions?
I'd just like to make sure I'm on the same page as everybody else. Are we looking at item 6.4?
Yes.
Okay.
Gas
Okay.
tax policy.
All right. Yes, I'm good. I'm with you. Thank you. I don't actually have any questions. Hello, Suzanne.
Sorry, Kristen, you were
Thank you.
saying gas
Anybody
tax
else?
policy?
Yes, item 6.4 is your
no,
information report.
It's an information report. It's not the gas tax policy, which is further down. It's a discussion of the reserve.
Sorry.
I'll move to
Okay,
receive
Sal?
the report. I'll move to receive the report.
Okay, I'll second that. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 6.5 is Q1 financials. I guess Suzanne again.
That's me again.
It's you again.
So the first quarter financials, I just completed it for the EAD services. And so that includes the building inspection and the emergency planning. So I'll just leave it up to you guys if you want to ask questions on these. Just trying to download there it is. So the first quarter, really not a lot happens in the first quarter. It's just January to March. But I've shown all the revenues as being accrued in, so you get the actual amount of spend.
Okay, Sal, go
any-
ahead.
Yeah, I looked at it and I was looking at the percentages at the bottom, and since it was first quarter, everything looked pretty good. You know, so I'm going to move to receive the report.
Okay, seconded by Vivian. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We go to 6.5 is quarter one financials 2021 EAD. And I'll move to receive that report.
We just did that one.
Oh, we did that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay, we're on 6.6 and the office equipment as staff recognition. Any discussion on that?
I think this was my bright idea, and I'm pretty pleased to see that nobody had, you know, sort of any extras, or obviously the COVID recovery funds and the diligence of the staff. Things are covered, you know, so that's great. Thank you for doing that. I'll move to accept
Melanie?
the report.
Thank you. I'll second that. Melanie, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you, Chair. Only that the staff does appreciate the thought and consideration of the directors in making sure their needs are fully met.
Thank you. Okay, I'll moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And this is 6.7, divine tipping fee bylaw amendment. And I'll move this. And I believe
I've admitted staff, Chair, for this item if you'd like to hear from them.
okay, so the preferred options are the proposed bylaw amendment be read a first, second, and third time and then adopted. So and we would do it a first, second, and third time and then have a fourth reading for adoption. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah, Sal, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, I looked at the 2021, 2025 budget, and I went right to this service, and I saw the total budget for this year, and then takes a jump next year. I'm just curious. We're upping some of these costs, but then in the service, it gets bumped up also. Is the bump up due to the new site for this service? That's for Angela.
Thank you, Director Demare. So not for the new site, it's actually the service provider has increased their servicing fees for the site. So the tipping fees help offset those expenses that are coming in. And because this bylaw hasn't been revisited since 2018, there are some a little bit of catch up that is required.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Vivian, did I see your hand pop up there?
Thank you, Chair Mac. Hello, Angela, Mary Lou. I just wanted to ask, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, and sorry for the machine in the background, the extended producer responsibility material, Could you just give me an example of that? I'm really interested in that. And I won't take lots of time today, but just an example. Thank you.
I can speak to that. So Recycle BC is a great example of EPR programs, as well as tire stewardship programs are an example. So we usually, as a buyer, will pay a fee towards those programs to help recover the cost to recycle those items. However, in some of those more remote areas, it usually never covers the entire cost. So we still try to keep it as low as possible. So we want to recycle those items and those materials. And that's why sometimes like having a garbage fee a little bit higher helps to keep those programs really cheap. So people kind of are able to save money by recycling everything they can.
Got it. And if I could ask one more question, Chair Matt?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Just how are you managing the invasive species there? Just into the general garbage? Yeah? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll move first, second, and third reading. And Vivian will second that. And I'll call the question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried. And then would I move then that we adopt this? Chair Milne or Kristen?
Thanks, Chair. It's a recommendation to the board, so you can, typically we separate it out when the final decision's being made. Since this is a recommendation, we can do it together, but we can also do it apart.
Oh.
So next motion would be a recommendation to the board to adopt the bylaw.
Okay, then I'll make that motion. And Viv or Sal will second it. I'll call the question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, director's reports, Anderson Lake dock improvements. Can I amend this, the amount here? CAO Helmer?
Yes, you certainly can.
Yeah, I would like to up this to $10,000. There's been a request for some other work to be done. All this work that it says here, Anderson Lake dock improvements. This is actually improvements just to the park area. So it's a multitude of things. We've had porta potties put in for 6 months for the really busy season, and a pad to put them on, and all that sort of stuff. So anyways, I would like to increase that up to $10,000, just so that I know they have enough money to do everything they need to do to get through the summer season, because it's getting extremely busy there. So I'll make that motion to increase that number. Can I get a seconder? Sal, thank you. Call the question on that. Opposed, motion carried. So by doing that now, I need to move that we approve then the whole recommendation then with that amendment. Is that correct?
So Chair, you didn't have a motion on the floor at the time. You changed it before. So if you would like it could be exactly as worded with the change that you put in.
Okay.
We can just adjust that right on the agenda and make that your resolution if that's what you're intending to do.
Yes, I am. Okay, that's fine. So I will move that we recommend then that $10,000 be put to the improvements at the Anderson Lake Dock site. Seconded by Sal. I'll call a question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Chair,
And now we go to 7.2 Heritage Sites Funding Opportunities, Director Rainbow. Oh,
Chair,
Kristen,
sorry
go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. Can I just get clarification on, I see in the staff report that it's split between the SLRD and the society. With the increase from 7,500 to 10,000, how is that split changed?
Well, I would like to see Allison is sort of the lead on this, what's going on there. She's working with the society. So I think that funding should stay under her direction.
Perfect. So the allocation to cost center 3,000 will be increased by 2,500, up to 2,500.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and that's going to come from amenity funds.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so 7.2 is Heritage Sites Funding Opportunities, Director Rainbow. Leslie, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, I would love to speak to this. I know that there are a
Thank
couple
you.
of different, you're welcome. Chair Mac, thank you for inviting me to speak. I'm not completely fluent in the protocol for these meetings yet, so forgive me if I'm rude in the way that I address you. However, in response to 7.
No, we're pretty relaxed here,
Good.
so carry on.
All right. Thank you. In relation to 7.2, there are a number of different heritage sites that would benefit from having grants available to them. And because they're so small, the sites in Seaton, in Britannia Beach, and there's another site that I was reminded of. Let me look at my notes quickly. There's a railway site in Seaton, there's a museum in Braylord and the museum in Britannia Beach, and all of these would benefit from having different funds available to them. Unfortunately, they're so small that they don't have the resources available to spend, to dedicate towards grant writing. And I think the question being put forward is if the SLRD would be open to having their staff look into the possibility of hiring a grant writer that would work on behalf of the different heritage organizations that would benefit from having funds directed towards them. So while there's no dollar amount that's put forward, the suggestion was that the staff would be willing to look into the possibility of how much it would cost to hire a grant writer, and then that number could be brought forward for a vote if it was something that people were in favor of or not.
Very good, thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, Sal, go ahead.
The Northern SLRD, through NDIT funding, Northern Development Initiative Trust. So Area A and Area B share a grant writer that's partially funded by Northern Development Initiative Trust. And she works on, we also have heritage sites and buildings in our area, which the one that you mentioned, that Seaton, is part of Area B. So, and the Lillooet, the district of Lillooet, also accesses that funding, and they also use the same grant writer. So we talked about this at one of our other meetings, EAD meetings, about Area C and Area D sharing a grant writer, because the communities, the municipalities already have something. Well, if they don't, they should have a grant writing opportunities. The SLRD is also looking at our grant writer, and CEO Helmer can talk to that. but and what that job description looks like. But I highly recommend what you're saying, and Area C and Area D should get together and see what funding opportunities are out there for a grant writer. It's valuable position, tremendous. Thank you.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, Sal. And I'll have to talk to Director Rainbow, and like I'm fully supportive of getting together with him and doing something here. Do you have anything to offer, Melanie?
Thank you, Chair. So two pieces that were raised there. The first is that the SLRD has approved in the 2021 budget the addition of a new position in the fall, which will be a grant administrator. So that will take all of the little pieces that are being handled by all of the departments across the organization, bring them into the finance department for the application, the monitoring, and the reporting requirements, and be the point of contact for people internal and external. The intent was to support the SLRD specifically with that position, rather than to support community groups. However, that if we're looking at the community groups, the NDIT program is only available to the SLRD for areas A, B, and Lillooet, and the rest of Northern BC, everyone in the trust area for Northern Development Initiative Trust. The other areas, it would be at our cost. The current program provided by NDIT is 400 hours per year, and I believe the estimated cost is $10,500 plus the other employer costs, mandatory deductions that would need to be made as well that are associated. So you've got your taxes, your WorkSafe, your employment, and EI, CPP, those things would be added on top of that, as well as any related office costs like communications and such. So that's the envelope there, but it gives you a certain number of specific hours. So if we were to look at doing something similar, we could find out if we could bring a report back on what those options might look like and whether that would be what level of support the directors in the two southern areas are looking at. And would that also include municipalities, or would it be limited only to the rural areas? Because the municipalities also would not qualify for NDIT funding. And so the three southern municipalities may not have that type of position available for their community groups either. So it might be a bigger discussion that you might like to have for the sort of southern part of the SLRD. So depending on what you would like us to do with this, staff can certainly look into this and bring some further information back for your consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you want to expand on that, Leslie? Does that sound good to you?
That sounds great to me. I think that illustrates perfectly what we would hope for at the next, was to have that information being brought forward so that then yourself and Director Rainbow would be able to have further discussion about how to move forward from the numbers that are presented.
Okay, thank you. So what, you want a resolution to that effect then, Melanie?
Thank you, Chair. That would be great. And also, I think Director Birch-Jones had a question. And for myself, the clarification on whether you would like that brought to EAD or if you would like to have it brought to the board for a broader discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Vivian, go ahead.
Thank you. I think Director Rainbow was specifically interested and excited about the heritage sites across the entire region, and thinking maybe along the lines of, are there grants for heritage sites that would apply to Little Seton as well as Britannia as well as, so he was sort of thinking regionally, not just let's do in C and D what they're doing in A and B with NDIT. So I'd like to keep it at that level so that staff are really free to maybe fill in some gaps, or just as it says in the agenda, explore the possibilities so that there's flexibility in what staff do looking into this. I don't know if I'm being clear, but I didn't want to hone it down before staff have had a chance to explore it in a regional sense.
Mhm.
I see CAO Elmer nodding, so I think you understand what I mean, but I'm happy to support this.
Do you have anything else to add, Leslie? I see you looking inquisitive.
No, I'm enjoying the conversation about it. I don't have anything else to add. I think working as a grant writer, I think that being able to put resources into assisting smaller heritage sites is a really great thing, as well as larger heritage sites, because it's kind of one of the things that we have to do, but it falls on the side of the desk if you don't have enough dedicated time for it. So I think everybody would benefit from exploring what the feasibility of hiring somebody like that would do for those places.
Thank you. Would you like to make a resolution to, like Melanie said, that we could make a resolution to bring this back to another EAD meeting or take it right to the board? I think it would be wise, we just take this discussion right to the board to get the input from the municipalities. How does that sound, Melanie?
At your pleasure, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll make that motion then, and Leslie will second it. And I'll call the question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, now we go on to correspondence for action. Request for funding, LaJoy Lake Residents Association, seed funding. Sal? Yeah, go ahead. You're muted.
I'll have to declare a conflict of interest on agenda item 8.1 and 8.2. Due to that, my daughter is employed by the BRVCA and my wife is a director.
Okay, thank you for that. Kristen? Yeah, Vivian, go ahead.
I'd like to move this. The Bridge River Valley Community Association receiving funding of $2,500 from the SLRD Electoral Area A Select Funds as seed funding towards their portion of insurance, communications program, other shared services, and costs associated with becoming established as a legal entity as a newly formed committee of the Bridge River Valley Community Association, representing the LaJoie Lake residents in issues specific to LaJoie Lake and Bridge River Valley, just as written in our agenda. I'd move that. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll second that. Is there any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now we go on to 8.2. Do you want to speak to that again, Vivian?
I'm happy to move that one as written. Would you like me to read it out?
No, that's fine. We've got it, I believe. Everybody's okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay, so you're going to move it and Leslie will second it.
Yes, I will.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. We can bring Sal back now, can we? Hello, Sal. Okay, 8.3 is request for funding Lillooet Learning Community Society, new cooperative community space. You'd like to speak to that, Vivian?
Thank you. This is a pretty exciting little project that's going on in downtown Lillooet. The hub is right next door to the post office, where absolutely everyone goes and gets out of their cars, and optimistically they'll see this beautiful storefront and they'll go in And it's all about Lillooet produced, Lillooet grown, etc. So the hub is being overseen by the Lillooet learning communities. And they are requesting funding of $3,000 from Electoral Area B Select Funds. And I'd like to move that $3,000 from Electoral Area B to assist with their community space, including purchasing building plans, drawings, track lighting, and kitchen processing equipment.
Okay, Sal, go ahead. Are you seconding it? Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Correspondence for information, 9.1, Ministry of Forests, Lands, Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development, Brian Moore, Engineering Officer, Cascades Natural Resource District, Downtown Forest Service Road, Area B. Sal, do you want to speak to this?
Hi, it's in Vivian's area.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Area B. Vivian, would you like to speak to this?
Yes. Sal could probably
Well, then
speak
go-
to it quite well too.
Go right ahead.
Just for your reference, Downton is named after the fellow that actually engineered the Downton Reservoir and so forth, and the entire hydroelectric project that we have changing our landscape dramatically around here. Pretty phenomenal. The Downton Forest Service Road is about 20 kilometers south of Lillooet on Highway 99. And it's an incredibly important Forest Service road for recreation. And I know of 3 spectacular hikes there. People use it for ice climbing. They use it for our off-road vehicles. They use it for backcountry skiing and so on. And so Brian Moore at Cascades knows that we have a very strong interest in keeping this road operational. So he's given me, the heads up that MOTI, and just to be relieved of their RUP, and I had to ask him what that meant. Russell, you probably know. I think I've forgotten. But MOTI has a gravel pit about 1 kilometer up the road, and they don't need it for the next 10 years. They're keeping their interest in it, though, for 10 years down the road. And so they're not available to have a reason to fund it. So what I would like to do is recommend to the board that we write a letter to Cascades Natural Resource District, Brian Moore, thanking them for bringing this to our attention and indicating that Area B has a very strong interest in maintaining this road. And we'd like to be kept informed, and we'd like to participate in future discussions. And maybe just leave it at that for now.
Okay, very good. That sounds really good. And now I know exactly where you're talking about. So yeah, very good. I'll definitely second that motion. And is there any other discussion on it? Sal, go ahead.
Just a heads up, I've been communicating with Flinroe over the last while on the activation of forestry roads. As we all know, or maybe not know, that the Lillooet Tribal Council has an agreement with the 3 major licensees in our area that there's no road gain regarding forestry roads. So I had a conversation with BC Timber Sales, who has a timber license, is one of the timber licensees of the three. And what they're looking at doing is actually starting to deactivate roads and also rehabbing roads. So they're starting a process, is something that just they're starting right now. And they're looking at some of these forestry roads that they have control over. And on the rehab side of it, to actually recontour it and then plant trees on them. And there's a couple that they're doing up in our area, just off the Hurley. So it's a program that we may see develop with the Premier Horgan's news release the other day of improving the forestry in BC. So it's imperative that just what is in the document, that to get a bridge in there, it takes quite a bit to get a new bridge in there. So yeah, whether it's a trail, a rec site trail that's legally established, or a rec site that's legally established, I think that's what's going to be required. Thank you.
Yeah, Vivian, go ahead.
Just something that I should have added is that I would like a copy to go to rec sites and trails, specifically Tim Bennett, in part because there are 2 recreation sites located fairly close to this Forest Service road, and there's some obvious expansion of rec site opportunities, and there's a beautiful area for cross country and so on and so on. But I think, as suggested by Brian Moore, bringing in rec sites and trails early and making sure they're part of the discussion is a good idea. If I could just add that.
Okay, so do we need to add that as an amendment or just add it to the resolution? Kristen?
Thanks, Chair. We could do an amendment to the resolution and add that piece in. So if you want to do that resolution to amend the main motion with that wording, that would be perfect. And then we can go back and call the question on the main motion as amended.
Okay. Do you want to make that motion then, Vivian, the amendment?
Yes, please. And sorry, I should have thought of
Okay.
it in this place. Yes, please.
No,
So
that's
moved.
fine. And I'll second that. And just a comment, if they're going to start deactivating a lot of these roads, I worry about fire access. You know, a lot of these roads are wonderful for fire access. And if they start deactivating them, then everything is going to have to be done with helicopters. And as we've seen in our area here, sometimes there's not a lot of helicopters available when there's fires going all over the place. So, you know, I think they really need to take a second look at deactivating. And I know they've tried to change their method of firefighting to more aerial stuff, but that's a good thing. That's just another advantage, but it's not the end all. So I think we got to be really careful and pay attention to what they're doing. Yeah, Vivian, go ahead. And Sal.
Well, and just thank you. And you know, I could start CCing all over the place, but I just thought I would sort of follow it up as an individual once we had a letter from the board, because search and rescue have also indicated that these gravel pits are very important for their operations. It's often a safe landing spot for them, but as part of that, they need to be able to get out of there too. And so they also have an interest, but we could sort of bring in other players as we go along.
Yeah, very good. Sal?
Yes, thank you, Chair Mac. The no net gain in roads that the LTC and the timber licensees agreed upon, one of the main components of it was for wildlife. And the study was done in Alberta regarding roads and wildlife, and specifically for grizzly bears, and that's why they put that in. So the no net gain is if you're and also we've got issues with a lot of the roads leading to cut blocks where people leave debris, have fires, and the list goes on and on. So that's why they deactivate roads. And so the couple of reasons why in the Lillooet TSA timber supply area, this was put in place, and it was mainly the Lillooet Tribal Council that spearheaded that program. On top of it now, what BC Timber Sales is doing is saying, okay, we're going to deactivate these roads. Is there a chance that we're ever going to go back in there in the next little while? So deactivation of roads is not recontouring and that concept. And if they're not going to go back into that area, then they're going to recontour and rehab it and plant trees.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the concept of that whole conversation. I had a really good chat with BC Timber Sales. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll call the question then. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried, or amended motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any decision on late or on additional late business? Kristen?
Sorry, Chair. I believe that was calling the question on the amendment, and then we just need to call the question on the main motion.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
I'll call the question on the main motion.
Thank
All
you.
in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Any decision on additional late business? Melanie?
Thank you, Chair. I have not received any additional late business, just the two items that are listed in section 11, which were adopted as part of the agenda.
Okay, so late business then is 11.1, request for decision, adoption of board policy number 26-2021, federal gas tax community works funds. Who would like to speak to this? Suzanne? Suzanne, are you ready?
I'm ready. So this must be the gas tax policy.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's just get into this report. At the September 2020 board meeting, there was a resolution passed that staff developed an application form for community works gas tax funds that could be used in respect of potential projects. So I reviewed a multitude of regional district community works fund policies and reports. Not a lot of regional districts had a separate form to be filled out, but I actually really liked the ones that did. So Capital Regional District, which is a lot larger regional district from the SLRD, had a whole project and forms filled out for many different types of projects. A little bit too elaborate for our needs, but I kind of took the pieces that would work, reviewed obviously the community works fund agreements that we have. So there's the main agreement the SLRD has with UBCM, and then there's the administrative agreement that's on top of that between UBCM and Canada. So all of those rules and regulations have to be followed. The policy basically talks about keeping that in mind, but that form that I created really has all of those pieces that we need to really make a decision on whether it qualifies under the agreements. But it still can be adjusted or refined. This is the first draft, so I'll open it up for comments, unless you want me to go through each section I kind of, in the report, I did notify each section what it was meant to be for. So I'll just open it up for the EAD committee's comments.
Okay, Sal?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Mac. Director LaFrance, I've got a number of questions. One is the 10,000 minimum, and just regarding nonprofit organizations, would that apply also to nonprofit organizations, and if yes, why?
So I reduced it to a minimum just to avoid a whole bunch of small little projects. Also because the SLRD has an internal policy for capitalization, and that minimum is $10,000. So for internal capitalized items, that is our policy. So I just reflected that for everything to minimize the amount of small little projects, as well as for the capitalization threshold. And for nonprofit organizations, yeah, they would still have to follow that as well. That could be reviewed if the EAD committee feels like that's going to be a hindrance, but it was just meant to not have a whole bunch of tiny little projects. Is because really community works funds are meant for large infrastructure projects that are more regionally based and for services that are traditionally provided by a regional district.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I did look at the report that we received earlier on the community tax fund, and there was about 2 or 3 that were under the 10,000 that were approved previously in previous years. So that's why I asked the question. Yeah. Okay. Next one is it's on page 5. If you can go to page 5, and it's regarding disbursement, on the disbursement element of it. And as you know, in Area A, we have a permanent resident population, and then we got a much larger non-resident population. So in the winter months, we don't have, we have our permanent population, and then we get some of the non-resident property owners that'll come up to recreate and bring their guests. And of course, we got tourists to come up to snowmobile and so on and so forth. But for about 6 months, our population booms here. And especially on long weekends, because all the non-resident property owners, the majority, there's some that live here full time during that period. And especially with the COVID now, we've had it for almost a year. And so just curious, I'd like you to comment on that, because we do grow extremely large here in the summer with a lot of people. That's not even including the tourists, but just the people that own property.
I don't know how that relates to the policy, but
well, it's on the disbursement of the funds.
So in a perfect world, we would only disperse the funds after confirmation that they have been paid. And then we can confirm that it is for an eligible expense for the community works funds. In certain circumstances, if we need to disperse funds in advance, we could add specific clauses into the agreement as such, but I still have to verify that they're for eligible costs.
Well, yeah, if I could interrupt, what my question is on the community tax fund that comes in, how it's dispersed to the
allocated to the areas. Yes.
Yeah,
sorry.
Allocated. Yeah, yes, exactly.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, that was a board decision, or it could have been an EAD decision actually made to the board for the allocation. factors involved, and they wanted to just get a broad stroke of all the different kind of factors involved. So population, they chose it as part of the Stats Canada population listing because that's the most, obviously, the most authoritative, the most real figure that we could grab from. So it doesn't take into account any kind of fluctuations as far as I know. It's only for full-time residents.
Okay, well, maybe we can look at that another time. I know at there's in the SILGA, Southern Interior Local Government Association, there's a move to, because there are other areas in regional districts, electoral areas, that have the same situation as we do in Area A, with a larger majority of non-resident property owners to property owners. And there's a movement there to get it to the UBCM and as a resolution to help facilitate items just as I've been mentioning, because we don't get the funds really for any infrastructure or amenities due to the process of all they look at as the permanent resident population.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll leave that one at that. Then the next one is recreational infrastructure. Do trails included in that?
Yes, so large networks of trails are included. So for example, like a sea to sky trail kind of setup would be included.
Okay, the next one is tourism infrastructure. Just recently, the BRVCA was able to get a Section 56 on a very large rec site, which is basically where the old Brailer and Ski Hill is. So now it's a legal identity, and they partnered with the Hoiston First Nations community. So would some of these funds be applicable to that, either through the recreational infrastructure or the tourism infrastructure?
It would all depend on the project, and so that would help with filling up the form so I can get all the information I need. But infrastructure for tourism does qualify. I'd have to just verify all the details, like who would be the ultimate owner, and verify their status, nonprofit or otherwise, and start from there.
Yeah, I'm good. I like what you've presented. I like it. It just makes it really clear for us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Elle. Anybody else have any questions?
I think CAO
Vivian,
Helmer.
go ahead.
I believe Melanie, did you have your hand up earlier?
Through the chair, it was just to clarify that piece, that it was allocation rather than, yeah, I was just going to jump in. That's been covered off. Thank you.
So in that case, I definitely thank you for doing this work, and I sort of appreciate having done a couple of Community Works Funds projects, partly why we're doing this and what you're trying to get at. And it makes really good sense to me. I sense a bit of a shift where staff are going to be a little more proactive in looking for potential projects versus just waiting for them to come up through community groups, through board members. That is okay with me. The for-profit organizations, that's one thing on the form that I thought could be added. Suzanne, just on page 10 of 12 of the report, when you're asking for the CRA business number, that could be maybe in brackets for-profit. So it's not to, like, anything to not discourage the nonprofits from applying. But I think this helps a lot in defining what we can do with the funds. And I'm curious to know if it would work at all for the hub that we're working on, the social enterprise, but I'll ask you about that maybe with more detail offline at another time. This all makes pretty good sense to me, so thank you. Yep.
Okay, everybody's good? Okay, could I have a motion then to recommend this to the board to adopt policy number 26, 2021? Moved by Sal, seconded by Vivian. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now 11.2, Director's Report, waiving of tipping fees, Lillooet landfill. Director Birch Jones. Vivian?
Thank you. I was just thinking, what the heck is line 2? Oh, that would be mine. So everyone except perhaps Director DeBee, Leslie, I don't know if you've been able to see the background because that went to Director Rainbow, but essentially this is a particularly egregious situation of illegal dumping, but this one went onto private property off the highway, south on Highway 12. And we'd just like to help these property owners out with reimbursing the landfill using select funds in Area B for the tipping fees. So unless there's discussion, I'd just like to make the resolution to spend up to $1,000 towards tipping fees at the Lillooet landfill for the residents of 8315 Highway 12, Area B, to clean up the illegal dumping as described in their application and letter dated May 19th, 2021. I'll move that.
I'll second that. Do you have a question, Sal, or were you seconding? Okay. All right. Moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
And thanks very much, CIO Helmer, for your help with that one along the way. And we'll figure out how to do the reimbursement when best we can. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, is there any director's notice of motion? Nope. Okay, this is usually Tony's happiest moment. Yeah, time for adjournment. Thank you very much for being here, Leslie. I appreciate that very much. I hope you got some insight into what goes on here, but thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me in. I always appreciate these opportunities to learn more about what goes on in the different districts. So it keeps me engaged. Thank you for accepting me into the circle today.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody. It's now raining in downtown Darcy.
Oh, good.
Yay.
Sorry, Chair.
Kristen,
Can we just have a
Kristen,
motion
go
to
ahead.
adjourn, please?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thanks.
I'll second it.
seconded by Sal. Call the question. All